Good morning and welcome to another Morning Drive Mini. All right. Again, these Morning Drive Minis aren't full episodes. They're just a quick little conversation. So you have to stay tuned for the next major episode. But today we're just going to spend a few minutes chatting about time and leaving early. So I left work today at like 5:02. And leaving work at 5:02 might not sound like a big deal. Most people think, hey, I'm supposed to be at work from 8 to 5. Leaving at 5:02 is when you're supposed to leave work. The kicker for me, though, is I never leave work at 5:02. To me, I would feel like I was slacking. I would feel like I'm being lazy. I'm feeling I'm not putting in everything I can. And if I'm going to put myself to something, I'm going to do the best I can. Why would I be leaving at 5:02 if I'm doing the best I can, right? What's the chance of something naturally ending right at 5 o'clock so that I happen to be walking out the door at 5:02? It wouldn't happen, right? And that's kind of the reason why leaving at 5:02 never makes sense. I mean, sometimes you finish your work up at 5:14 and you leave at 5:15. Sometimes you finish up your work at 7 and you leave at 7. That's just how I've always typically, thought about my workload and working, right? So I wouldn't leave super early, and I'll tell you, I can't. In the last year, I've left before 5:15 less than 3 times, maybe less than 5 times, right? So it's just not what I do. I tend to work a little late. Now, the kicker is some people have mixed opinions on this. I've read some articles about people talking about, hey, you got to leave directly at 5 because there's always going to be plenty of work for you to do, and if you don't leave right at 5, there's no way you can give time to family, and you're just going to stress yourself out and cause all these problems. I've read those arguments, and I don't want to say there's a conclusive decision about that. What is okay, what is not okay, what is too much time, what's not enough time. I can't tell you what the official answer is there because I don't know if there's an official answer. But what I will tell you about is that everyone's got a brand and they've got an image, and the time that you leave fits in with your brand and who you are. Now, before somebody gets all freaked out over, you're worried about your brand, but your brand really is who you are. It's not just who you say you are, right? If somebody says there's something and they're not, you know it real quick. The company that says, hey, we're the highest quality cars in the world, but their cars break down every week, they're not what they say they are. They might want you to believe they're quality, but their brand is not quality. Nobody believes that they're actually quality. And if nobody believes they're actual quality, then the brand's not quality, right? So what is the brand? What are you? What do people believe you are? What do they think you are? That is your brand. And for me, I'm not a guy who puts in the bare minimum. I'm not a guy who, just does what needs to get done and moves on with his life. I'm somebody who knocks things out of the park. I'm somebody who makes the impossible happen. And so what time would the person who makes the impossible happen leave work? Right? Think about it. All other things set aside. What time would the person who does the impossible leave work? If you just think about that, not about me, if you just think about that, the person who does the impossible, of course they're working late because they're making impossible happen. They're doing things above and beyond. They're exceeding expectations, right? So, there's nothing necessarily wrong with leaving at 5 unless it conflicts with your image and your brand and what you are. If you are supposed to be the guy who's a grinder, if you're supposed to be the person who works everybody to death, then don't leave at 5. If you want to come off as being a reliable machine and you sit there and say, look, I knock things out, I'm right on schedule, I do everything on time, then fine. Show up at 8 and leave at 5. That fits with your brand, that fits with your image, right? And I mean, that sounds silly, but I want you to think about that. And it's not about judging others and deciding, oh, well, that person leaves early, that person doesn't. It's more about thinking, what does that say about you and what do you want people to think about you? It's perfectly fine to look at a job as something you go to at 8 and you leave at 5, and that it is just it's just a place you spend 9 hours of your day or 8 hours of your day supplying something for somebody else, and then you go home and live your life. Your life isn't attached to work. For myself, that's impossible. For me, work is part of my life. It's part of my identity. It's who I am. One of the major values that I add to the world is my work product, what I generate at the office. And some people might say that sounds depressing, but I think it's depressing to think that's depressing. What's depressing about adding value to the world and having pride and excitement in the value that you're adding to the world? There's nothing there to be shameful of. There's nothing there to be depressed about. That's a good thing, right? Because if I value my work and I value what I do at work, then that 9-10 hours I'm spending in the office isn't time that I'm getting grinded. It's time that I'm making the world better. It's time that I'm fulfilling my destiny. It's time that I'm making great things happen. So the person who looks at work as like that place they have to go for 8 to 9 hours a day, and then they need to leave right at 5 so they can get on with the rest of their life, I feel bad for that person, because for that person, work is something taking them away from life. Work is something that doesn't fit in with their life. And if you're doing something that you value and that's important to you and that you enjoy and that makes the world better and makes you better and something that really fulfills you, then that time that you're putting in at work isn't time away from your life. It is part of your life. And so many people think that living for work or working as part of your life is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's a great thing. And the reason it's a great thing is because, again, if you enjoy what you're doing at work, if you enjoy your work, then it's not work, right? If you enjoy what you're doing every day, then it's not painful. It's not depressing. It's not a grind. I wake up in the morning excited to go into the office because I'm excited what we can make happen. That is awesome, isn't it? Isn't that cool? What would you rather be doing with your day? And if you sit here and say, hey, I would rather be, painting, then maybe you should be a painter instead of whatever it is that you're doing. Because you know what I like to do? I like to make impossible things happen and make amazing things happen. And you know where I can do that? One of the places, I do it multiple places, one of the places I do it is in the office for the company I work for. Right? And that's cool. That's awesome. But it goes back to what's my purpose there? Why am I there? And again, leaving at right after 5, I feel like that doesn't fit in with my brand. It doesn't fit into how I feel like I should be behaving at work. It doesn't mean that I look down on others that do it, although, depending on things you do. The person who complains about working so hard and shows up at 8:05 and leaves at, 4:45, yeah, you work so hard. Oh, congratulations, you don't even put in 40 hours of work. That's not a week. That's not working too hard, right? You might have an argument that you work too hard when you're stuck in the office for 18 hours a day and you haven't seen your family in a month. Okay, now you've got an argument to make. But if you're coming late and leaving early, I don't have much sympathy for you. You're just clearly in the wrong place. You shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Clearly you're that miserable and your time is not useful, and you should simply be somewhere else. Get up and move. Go try something else. Find a different career. Find a different position. Try working on something different. Seek out different projects. Figure something out. Because that's not how you should be looking at your job and your career. And there's definitely people who are workaholics who work all day, every day, hoping for something that will never show up, and that can be dangerous. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to grow in my company. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to move up the chain. But I want to move up the chain and grow in my company because I'm excited about what I'm doing and I'm excited about doing more. I don't stay at work late because I'm hoping someday I get a promotion. I don't stay at work late because I'm hoping for someday I get rewarded for it. That's the wrong way to look at it. I do expect to get rewarded for what I put forth. And frankly, I expect the company to reciprocate. But I'm not waiting for something to happen someday, and I'm not miserable today with a expectation of something changing in the future. Does that make sense? Right? As I said, there are definitely people out there, and I think it's a bad thing. If you are working, 15-hour days and you hate it, and you hate everything you're doing every day, you're miserable, but you're forcing yourself to do it because you have it in your head that someday you're going to get paid more, or someday you can get promoted and get something better, you're on the wrong path. That's not the way to do it, right? Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to stay late and do something you don't want to do. There's been plenty of days that I've had to do things I didn't want to do. There's plenty of nights that I spent doing stuff I didn't want to do, right? I mean, you're not going to do what you want to do every day, every minute. But in general, you should enjoy what you're doing enough that you're not watching that clock. Okay, if you're watching that clock, it doesn't mean you can't be a productive employee. I'm not saying everybody who leaves at 5 is not a productive employee. I'm not saying that at all. Don't interpret this that way. What I'm saying is that I'm really glad that I feel uncomfortable leaving at 5. I'm glad that leaving at 5 makes me think, ooh, this isn't where I should be doing. This doesn't fit in with my brand. This doesn't fit in with who I am. I'm not a person who watches the clock and leaves at 5. I'm a person who, tackles projects, and because I want to get home to have dinner with my family, then I do eventually leave. I don't stay there all night, although honestly, I have worked at night until like 5 in the morning just because I'm so excited about a project and getting it done. I've worked until 5 o'clock in the morning on a project. Great. It was funny, one night I remember I started working on a project about 8 o'clock at night, or maybe 9 o'clock at night after I put my daughter to bed, and I'm working on this project, and I was working on it just excited about it, and I didn't even realize what time it was. And then all of a sudden it was like 5 in the morning, and I was like, my gosh, I have to leave for work in an hour, right? But I felt silly because I was like, part of me feels like I should go into work late because I just spent the last 8 hours working on this project. I should have gone to bed earlier and got up, but that's just because you need sleep to function, right? But that doesn't happen normally. But the fact of the matter was, that kind of stuff does happen occasionally because I'm excited about what I'm doing, and I'm excited about what I'm making. And you're right. I've heard the argument that when you leave work, there'll just be more work to do tomorrow. Like that, there's always more work. But I also look at that as there's always more you can do. It's not more you have to do. There's always more you can do. And to me, that's awesome. There's always more I can produce. There's always more that I can invent. There's always more that I can improve. There's always more I can enhance. There's always more that I can, communicate. And to me, that's exciting. I want to communicate more. I want to train more. I want to help more. I want to teach more. I want to sell more. I want to invent more. I want to be the best that I can, and I want the things that I do to be the best that I can. And in general, I want to keep making amazing things happen. And part of that brand and that emotion and that excitement does mean I end up staying late, and I end up staying much later than, say, for example, 5 o'clock. And it always makes me wonder. Once again, it's not that I judge somebody who leaves at 5 per se. I tend to judge people in their work. But if you leave at 5, and then that tells me you're watching the clock. A horde of people get up at 5 o'clock and they leave. And a lot of people don't, right? I mean, I wouldn't even say most people leave at 5 o'clock. I just mean in general, no matter where you are, around 5 o'clock, some people are like, hey, it's quitting time. I'm going to go live my life. And to me, that's kind of a sad thing. And it's a sad thing simply because that tells me their work isn't a positive aspect of their life. They're looking at work as a paycheck, not a fulfilling piece of their world. And if you do research on it, there's a lot of times people who recently retired will actually pass away. And one of the reasons they pass away is because they no longer have purpose, or they no longer feel like they're, adding value to the world. And that is very unfortunate, because that tells me that work really is an important part of their life, even though they may not realize at the time. They're excited about this retirement thing, but the truth is, once they hit retirement, they stop seeing where they're adding value. And for me, it's not just in the office, though. I have a lot of businesses, I have a lot of projects, I've got books, I've got these videos, I've got a lot of things that I'm doing to add value to the world and to those around me every day. And I've talked about this before, this idea of retiring early. I view that I'm pretty much retired because I'm doing what I love to do, and I'm creating value, and I'm spending time in the areas that I want to be spending time at. And at least for me, that is fantastic. So you might be wondering, okay, if you hate leaving at 5 so much, and you're actually like freaking out about the idea of leaving at 5, which is a fairly normal time for people to leave, why did you leave at 5? And the answer is simple. it's my wife's birthday. So happy birthday to my wife, Jessica. Happy birthday, Jessica. I know you'll watch this. So it's my wife's birthday, and we're going out to dinner. So I had to leave right at 5 so I could get to dinner on time. Again, that makes sense, right? My family is very important to me. I'm not going to miss my wife's birthday dinner to work extra late this one night. You know, I can change the world in many ways and many times. But that's what I call balance. You know, balance is doing what's important. And when it's your spouse's birthday or family member's birthday, that's the important thing to be at. So you're going to go to that birthday party. But that doesn't mean on a random Tuesday night that I'm going to watch the clock at 5 o'clock and try to get out there as soon as possible. I'm going to create value. I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm not going to watch the clock. That's just not who I am. It's not my brand, and it's not who I am inside, which becomes your brand, right? So once again, this might have been an odd topic, but I just want to bring it up because I left at 5:02, and to me that's a crazy thing. But I thought about when I left it. You know, I just recognized about myself. I said, hey, I'm a little anxious about the idea of leaving at 5:02. Why? You know, why am I anxious about that? And then you ask the question, why do other people look at 5 o'clock as a cutoff time, a time that they can go leave? Why do they do that? And I thought it was a good thing to investigate and a good thing to think through, because I think a lot of times people don't take the time to think about that kind of stuff, right? But we just did. So once again, thanks for listening. This is a Morning Drive Mini, which is a short little informal conversation we have. However, stay tuned to MillionaireWho.com, where we'll have more articles, blogs, fun and games to come. Once again, this is Brooks Fiesinger of BrooksFiesinger.com and MillionaireWho.com, where we help you stabilize your wallet, secure your future, and succeed in entrepreneurship finance. All right, thanks for listening. Now go out there and make the impossible happen.